How many of these 5 violations has your current change or transformation triggered? Here's the harder question for you. Would you even know? Here's what makes psychological contract violation so very dangerous for transformation. It doesn't stay contained. One perceived violation cascades through every dimension of the employee's relationships with the organization. Neil Conway and Rob Reiner conducted extensive meta-analysis on psychological contract breach. What they found was that the consequences extend far beyond the individual. When employees perceive that their psychological contract has been violated, they don't just reduce their own engagement, they communicate that violation to their peers. They share stories. They warn new employees. They create the cultural narratives that become the immune system's antibodies from episode 5, along with the structural silence of episode 6. Remember the compliance director from last episode. She stayed silent about data vulnerability for 4 months. Imagine that same scenario, but now add the context that she had recently experienced a psychological contract violation. Perhaps she had been passed over promotion that she believed was implicitly promised. Perhaps her team had been restructured without her input. Well, suddenly her calculation about whether to speak up isn't just about organizational safety. It's now colored by a sense that the organization has already broken faith with her. So why take the personal risk of raising a concern for an organization that doesn't honor its commitments to you? This is how psychological contract violation feeds directly in the structural silence. When people feel betrayed, the threshold for speaking up rises dramatically. The emotional energy required to advocate for an organization that has violated your trust is simply more than most people are willing to invest. Daniel Kahneman's loss aversion research, which I referenced in episode 6, is particularly relevant here. People experience the psychological pain of contract violation approximately twice as intensely as they experience equivalent gains. A broken promise of a career advancement hurts more than a surprise promotion feels good. A violation of trust damages more than an act of trust building repairs. This asymmetry means that organizations need to make multiple positive deposits in the psychological contract for every single withdrawal. And during transformation, when withdrawals are happening rapidly and often invisibly, the account can go bankrupt before even leadership recognizes that there's a deficit. There's also a temporal dimension that most leaders completely underestimate. The relationship between psychological contract violation and trust is not linear. It follows what I describe in my newsletter on the relationship decay rate as an exponential pattern. Once trust begins to erode, the decay accelerates. A small violation that may have been absorbed in a high trust environment becomes amplified in an environment where trust is already declining. This creates a compounding effect where successive transformation action causes disproportionately more damage than the last. I see this pattern far too much in the organizations I work with at 2040 Digital. By the time leadership recognizes that something's wrong, they're not dealing with one broken contract. They're dealing with dozens of interconnected violations that have been compounding for months. And their standard response? A town hall meeting, a leadership message about the vision, a new engagement survey. Well, it does nothing to address the underlying contract damage. In many cases, it makes it worse because employees interpret these gestures through the same lens of distrust. So let me ask you this directly. If you're leading a transformation right now, when was the last time you asked your team not what they think about the changes, but what they expected this organization to be for them? And, well, whether those expectations are still being met.